Hey everybody. Welcome back to Therapist Theater. My name is Josh Treese, and I'm coming to you from Music City, USA with the podcast that takes a look at relationships and mental health through the lens of movies, TV, and pop culture. This week's guest is Dr. Sara Hopkins. Sara, as I'll call her right now, was my first professor in grad school and was the clinical director of the counseling center where I did my internship. She's a mentor, a friend, and someone who holds a very special place in my heart as someone who has been instrumental in helping me develop who I am as a person and a therapist. And in the same way that Dr. Hopkins helped shape me, you can help shape the reach of the show. If you like what we do here, consider giving it a 5-star rating in the podcast app. It would also help if you could write a 5-star review. Every time the show gets a positive rating or review, we increase the chances of being seen and reaching more people. If you're not already subscribed, do it now. Then get all of your friends to subscribe. Even if you got to pay them, I'm okay with it. So I think I'm okay right now with just jumping straight into the episode. Let's go ahead and dim the lights, raise the curtain, and start the previews. Welcome to the theater. What would you like me to call you on this? Sara, Dr. Sara Hopkins?
Just
Dr.
Sara.
Hopkins? Dr. H?
Those all sound ridiculous, so how about Sara?
Ugh.
Call me what you
Sara.
call me.
Call me by my name.
Call me by my name.
Cool. Doc, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
I promise I won't make a what's up Doc joke.
Okay. It's also the name of my dog, so
That's true. Where is he?
he's not here because he's loud and he makes weird noises with his nose, so
Yeah.
I wondered if you could hear that.
There's been, so obviously when we do the wrap up, it's in our apartment. And so there's been times where I have forgotten to take Miller's collar off. And then when he does the
yeah.
shake, there's a couple episodes you can hear the shake
Yeah.
during the thing. There was one episode, I want to say it was Jared Farley's, where he came to the house to record it, and I had to put Miller in the bedroom because Miller has a thing where when he meets new people, he loves everybody except my dad. He doesn't love my dad. But when Jared sat down on the couch, instead of getting up and just laying down and letting him pet him, Miller stood on Jared's legs. He tried to for like the first part of it. And he's a medium-sized, he's 55 pounds.
Yeah.
He's not big, but he's not little. Obviously, you can't do
It's like a small human in your
a
lap.
whole, yeah. So I had to put him in the bedroom for that.
Yeah.
But,
Well, he didn't get invited today, so
yeah. Does he
he's at
still
home.
come to the counseling
He
center?
does come to the counseling center typically Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Nice.
So, yeah, he's kind of a anti-therapy dog is what I call him.
Okay.
So, he's not super friendly, but he looks really cute. And he will let people touch him if they are nice enough to him. So, he's mainly just for looks.
Did that just develop? Because he was always friendly to me when I
Well,
was here.
he's really friendly with the counselor. So, the joke, when I say joke, I mean my own personal joke, which are always the best, is that he's an anti-therapy dog, but he's actually the therapy dog for the counselors. Because when they meet with me or I do their case staffing, he always comes in and sits on the couch with them.
Good.
So
There was one time when you might have been at lunch. You were out of the office or something, but he was here. And there was one time that we had supervision with Drea in here, and he plopped up in your chair.
Yeah.
And so before we started, we were like, okay, cool. We got supervision with Doc today.
yeah.
We're going to make this brief and give him treats at the end. It's
He
gonna be
gives
great.
really bad clinical advice.
It's true. It's
But
true.
he does love my chair. It's white and it has dog prints all over it. So
Chair doesn't love
that's
him.
how I like it.
Yeah. Miller will, when we like couch up like at night, he will circle the ottoman a few times. He'll jump up on the far side of the couch once or twice. If I get up to go to the fridge or something, as soon as I turn around, without hearing a single noise, he's in my spot. Like
Smart dog.
he waits like strategically to jump up in there, and then as soon as I like take a step towards him, he's looking up at me with the puppy dog eyes, and that tail will start. Like, and I'm like, dude, you know what you're doing. Like,
He's waiting on you to get it warm.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
So I have been looking forward to this so much because on top of getting to come back to the counseling center, which Sasha and I recorded her episode here.
Oh, okay.
But on top of that, it was just that I get to talk to you.
Well, thanks.
You just have such a special place in my counseling development, and I would even say my personal development. Because I just, like, looking back over the time in the program, you were my very first professor. And then in my experience of transitioning from, okay, we're just doing classroom stuff to now we're going to actually be in practicum internship seeing clients. Like my first semester, the practicum part, not a great experience. Kept going to my on-campus supervisor and saying, this is what's happening, I don't know what to do, and then getting advice and going back to the site that I was at, and I couldn't make any headway with getting help. And so I had come to the place where I had said, listen, if I need to, I'm just going to take a semester off from school so I can look for another place. Like that's more worth it to me than continue on like this. And then Johanna, who is our director of interns here, is that
that sounds really good.
Yeah. So Johanna just coordinates all the interns.
Mm-hmm. She does a lot of things.
She does.
That's one of the things.
So that's one of the slashes in her infinite amount of titles. She was like, hey, I talked to Dr. Hopkins. She wants to meet with you. And I was like, what? I remember coming to your office on the hallway for what I thought was an interview. And then us talking, and then at the end, I was like, so what timetable are you thinking you're going to, and you were like, oh, no, you got the job, like, if you want it. And I was like, what, really? Like, yeah. And it just, I think at that point, the frustrations that I had at the other place were so great that I was like, I kind of knew, okay, college students are probably not the population I'm going to target, but I knew I could trust you. I knew I loved you. And so I knew I can get better skills working underneath you than I could anywhere else. And I knew,
Thanks,
okay, that'll translate no matter what I want to. And so it just very much felt like I'm sinking in quicksand and you stretched out your hand, and it's just something I've been infinitely thankful for since. And then even just my time here was so beyond great. That it's just it's such a special time in my life, and you're such a special person that I've just been looking forward to it so much.
Well, thanks. It's really nice. I forgot you weren't here the whole time, so yeah, that brought that back for me.
All of 2017.
Yeah,
I was here. So fall of 16, I was at the other place.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you. My office still looks the same.
It does look the same.
I honestly thought that they would get rid of the book lamp. But
I love the book lamp.
I love the book lamp too. I'm gonna make one for our new nephew that we're gonna have.
Yeah, I think it's great. I want one. I love the book lamp.
I'll make you one.
I know you said you would. I still haven't seen a book lamp.
Oh, give me like a theme. So, like, for instance, that one was originally gonna be books that I thought told my story, like the titles of them. But then when I would go to enough thrift stores, I was like, oh, I'm gonna end up looking for months. And I was like, I can't do that. So I just bought okay, cool, hardcover. I think there is a book down there called Josh.
Yeah.
That's about some Broadway.
Yeah.
Some guy or what, I don't know, whatever. So give me a general theme and I'll get
I would
started.
rather you just pick the theme because then who knows what I'll get.
Okay.
Don't look around at the books. Just think of what it would be.
I was looking at your lamps to see what kind of... Because honestly, the toughest thing about doing that was finding a lampshade that worked with it. That was the toughest thing. Not wiring it to where it wouldn't catch on fire. That was easy compared to finding a lampshade.
It's always hard to find a good lampshade. Yeah.
They're either giant or they're too tiny.
I know. There should be a podcast on that.
Done.
Lampshade selection.
Episode 1 with us is out next week.
It'll be 5 minutes long.
Yeah, there you go. So we went to Walmart and then we found.
And here it is.
End of episode.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've enjoyed the most about doing the show is getting to talk to therapists to hear their story of how they ended up in it.
Mm-hmm.
So the big question always is, why therapy?
Well, I think like most good things in my life, I just kind of end up in it, as you said. And so I would like to say that there was some great plan, but that would be a lie. So I do remember, so I decided to go to college 2 weeks before the semester started, which isn't a great way to do it.
I was similar. I was filling out application essays on our senior picnic in a notebook with a pen to type them later because I had not applied anywhere yet.
Yeah, it works. Oh. It's a way. But I had big plans of like traveling the world and doing fun things, and that didn't happen. And so I thought maybe I should go to college. And so
wait, it didn't happen during the summer after you graduated high school?
Well, so do you want to let me tell you a story about my 18-year-old self. I got accepted to this thing called Up With People, which is this singing and dancing philanthropy organization. Don't write that down.
I'm like, Leigh-Ann, I've got an idea. Up With People. I'm in.
Recorded a Lisa Loeb song.
What is it called? Stay? Is it Stay?
No, maybe it wasn't Lisa Loeb. The song was Sandalwood.
Oh.
No, I can't remember. Some like angsty 90s singer, probably off of Reality Bites, because that's what I was really into. And I recorded this song on a cassette tape in my room, sent it to Up With People, got accepted. I had to raise $12,000 to go to this program. And I had 3 months to do it because of my acceptance date.
That's more expensive than college.
Oh, yeah. At the time, it felt like a deal. And I was raised by a single mom who was totally supportive but didn't have $12,000 to give me. And so I was going to work through the summer to raise that money. The only thing I really did was I threw a party, probably not a lot of legal things going on at that party, and charged people $10 to get in. And
so I'm hearing you say you had an entrepreneurial spirit.
I did early on, and didn't raise $12,000, but it was a great party.
This is like, we're going to write a movie script from this. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a hot mess. And so around that same time, my grandmother had terminal cancer. And so I think just kind of, it was a combination of not having that money and knowing that my grandmother wasn't going to be with us very long. And I decided I should probably stay home and go to college. So I went to this JUCO in Arkansas, where I'm from. Literally applied 2 weeks before classes started. I've never even taken the ACT. Still to this day haven't. I'm going to try to go my whole life without taking the ACT.
I can't imagine.
Or joining Twitter.
Yeah.
So those are my two goals.
I don't think anybody's going to ask you to take the ACT or did you take the SAT?
Nope. I took some entrance exam for a JUCO and they let me in.
What's a JUCO?
Junior college.
Oh.
So yeah, that was, I'm not sure if you could do that now, but you could in the 90s. Yeah. So I got in, remember going and not knowing what I wanted to do and just attending all of these classes. And I remember I went to my first psychology course, and I never had a psychology course. They didn't do that in my high school. And thinking, man, I like this. I am really curious about everything they're saying, and I think this is what I want to do.
Was it like an intro kind of?
Mm-hmm. It was intro to psychology. And that's how I picked my major. I was like, this is the only class I like. I should probably major in this.
It's sound thinking.
Thanks.
It's logical.
Yeah, it was. And my parents went through a really yucky divorce when I was early teen years. And so on the other hand, the other part of that memory or that time was that I had gone to counseling a couple times with a counselor that my mom set me up with. And this is where my narcissism part comes out. I remember being a 17-year-old kid and sitting in that session thinking, she could do this so much better. And so Yeah, isn't that crazy? But she was sitting behind a desk, and
I don't think that's narcissism. I think that's being a teenager, though. Like hypercritical.
all 17-year-olds have
yeah.
a titch of that
Yeah.
beautiful narcissistic part in them. It keeps them safe. It's good. So combined with this psychology idea, and then also some of my professors were therapists, and I thought, oh, I should think about that. And so that's kind of how I got into this. I took those courses. We moved, like I said, we're from Arkansas. The day after I graduated college, literally the day after, my husband and I moved to Nashville so that he could start school, and I started a grad program. And
Here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Got my MFT, marriage and family therapy degree, and then was a social worker for about 10 years and worked with kiddos in foster care system. And that is really important, good, hard work. And in the middle of that, worked on my PhD and realized that I just didn't have the resilience it would take to do that long term, and so moved into something else. So
Social work, not PhD.
Social work, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I had the resilience it took to get a PhD either, but I just did it anyway.
Which would probably mean that you did
So
have
maybe
it.
I did,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Did you get the PhD at Trevecca as well?
I did, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where in that mix did your kids come in?
Yeah, so I got pregnant with my daughter, who's now 13, and 13 so glorious. And she came when I was pregnant with her when I graduated with my master's.
Okay.
And then, and I would never recommend this next part, but I actually got pregnant with my son the first semester of my doctoral program, and got pregnant with my daughter when I was writing my dissertation. So
yeah,
those were both mistakes, and I now know what causes that, and I won't have that problem again. But at the time, wisdom had not visited me yet.
Yeah.
And I had all those kids, but we got it done.
Yeah, I have often said that getting my master's here was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. Mm-hmm. One of the most rewarding, but one of the most difficult. And I was fully committed to it, like put it first, all that. I cannot imagine having kids, much less being pregnant with kids, in the middle of doing that kind of serious level of studying.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, but I grew up in a family that kind of one of the unspoken rules is when you start things, you finish them. You don't get to quit them. And so in retrospect, I see now how that was playing out, and that I just really didn't think I could quit. Actually, when I was pregnant with my son, they put me on bed rest for 3 months, and I begged the OBGYN to let me continue my doctoral courses. I cried in her office, and it worked. Works with OBGYNs and cops sometimes. So only those two populations.
Yeah.
And so I would go to class, and then she would make me lay on my left side. My husband made me a bed in our Jeep Grand Cherokee that we had at the time, and I would lay on my left side for 3 hours in the parking lot so my blood pressure would lower back down so I could go to class at night. Now, that sounds so crazy, and I see your face.
Yeah, why didn't he make you a bed to lie in the classroom?
Because that would have been really smart, but I don't know.
I
don't know.
That's my engineer coming out, going
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I could do that better. Let me build this other thing to."
Next time I'll call you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. I don't know how we got on that, but
That you did.
That
Well,
was-
you were talking about how you in your doctorate and where your kids came in and all that.
Yeah.
Like, I just think, like, Terry's kids were older when older, quote unquote, when she got hers. Yeah. Wow, you guys are so strong. Like, holy cow. I mean, like, I never thought this degree is going to kill me. But, I mean, there were definitely times when Leigh-Ann and I were dating that I would say, I'm so sorry, I can't see you tonight. I need to do this project. I need to read this book. I need to study, whatever it is. And I just can't imagine having people's lives that I'm responsible for on top of
Well, I need to say, and I really mean this, I didn't do it on my own. I mean, I had a really incredible community. My bestest friend and to this day was in the program with me, and she had my back. And then, man, I'd always tell my husband, he's the one who earned the doctorate. I mean, he parented our children and picked up the slack. And, you know, if it wasn't for Shannon, I wouldn't be here.
Sure.
And that's probably still true. I know it is true to this day. But I didn't do it by myself. But it was hard. But I do. So the master's program is hard in a different way, because I think the master's program kind of undoes you a bit. And it kind of personally makes you question a lot about who you are and what your family constellation look like. And all these things I thought were healthy may not, in fact, be that healthy. And all these things I believe may not, in fact, be the best ways for me to live life. And PhD is different than that. It's not as personally. It's more about not giving up.
Somebody, I think a boss that I had who had gotten his PhD told me one time that you don't have to be smart to get a PhD. You got to be smart to get a master's. Mm-hmm. For a PhD, you just have to not quit. You have to do the work.
Yeah.
But it's just more about. Because I think he said something about, you don't even get to put in an original thought until the conclusion of your thesis.
Yeah, I'm not sure if smart's the word. It might just be, it may be ignorant. Yeah. Because you're signing up for hard.
Yeah.
But it's over.
Yeah.
What?
Now you got it. That reminded me of probably one of my favorite stories about coming to grad school, and you were a part of it as well. Since you were the first class, I think this was after week 2 or week 3, and we had 6-week classes. I had been out of school for 13 years when I came back for the master's, and I was so scared I had forgotten how to learn. Well, I didn't.
I remember this.
I didn't actually know how to learn in my undergrad because I did the bare minimum to get by. So it wasn't like I was nervous I forgot how to learn. It was more like I wasn't sure I ever learned how to learn. And so I was like, all right, I got to do whatever it takes to learn everything. So you assigned reading, which it's grad school. There's going to be a ton of reading. I knew that. B, you assigned research article reviews that you said you got to do in APA, American Psychological Association format. Is that it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I remember after week 1 or week 2, I had scheduled, okay, I'm going to go to the library. I'm going to find the article. I'm going to sit down and write this thing. And I found the article, sit down, read the whole thing, pulled up the computer, opened up a new Word doc, got ready to write. And that's when I realized, I don't know what APA is. I don't know what that format is. And I freaked out. And it's actually one of the first phone calls that I made to Leigh-Ann. We weren't dating at that time. No. And one of the because she had been in grad school at that point for 4 or 5 months. And I was like, she'll know. And so in a way, you're responsible for my marriage. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
But I remember coming to you in class at some point and saying, hey, is it okay if I meet with you after? And yeah. So we go to your office and I was like, hey, I just have a question. About the reading, which I'm sure maybe you were thinking okay, cool content. But I was like, I'm reading for 4 to 6 hours every night and I'm not getting it all done. And I'm not a slow reader. And how do you get all the reading done? And you were like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I read the whole chapter and I highlight everything I think is important. And then I go back and I type everything that I highlighted as a way to remember it. And you just bursted out laughing. And you were like, oh yeah, you're not going to have time doing that. And I go, and I'm not getting done with the reading. And you were like, oh yeah, we know you can't get done. We know we assigned too much. And I was like, wait, what? That's not fair. What are you talking about? Yeah, you got to learn to skim and prioritize. And I was like, okay. I just remember thinking okay, I don't know how to do this.
There's a shortcut.
Yeah, I was just so nervous I was going to miss. Because I think to me, coming at this as a second career, because I'd already had a career for 10 years before I came back, I was in another career that I felt, I think, some guilt around that maybe I didn't give it my all. Mm-hmm. So I think for this, it was really important for me to pay for the degree myself. Mm-hmm. It was really important for me to look for ways that meant I was giving this everything I had.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really nervous that I was going to fall into old patterns of just skating by. And so I think at the beginning I was like overdoing it.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. Well, the things we care about kind of stand out, and those are the things typically I find students pay attention to, which is what we want them to do, right? Is invest their energy in the places that feel like it's life-giving and feels true to them. And I mean, there are other times where you have to learn the other stuff, but ideally you're going to spend a majority of time, which this is true in life in general, right? Like when we find the things that are life-giving for us and, I don't know, just bring us into greater awareness of ourselves and the world. That's where we need to spend our energy.
Yeah.
That's how we honor ourselves, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think at the beginning, especially with the program, so much of it was trying to figure out who I was as a student, how do I even do this again and maintain my personhood?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I don't want to just have my nose shoved in a book for, all day. Although at the beginning I totally did. Some book that I read for your class for a report on it, I read the whole thing in one day. That's because of procrastination. That's not because of like I was just tearing through it, but that was because like, all right, cool. How do I plan this thing out? I have no time. Great. The day before, I'm going to start at 8 a.m. And then of course, like with me, I have to pace while I read or else I fall asleep.
Yeah.
So I would just walk a circle in my house, like living room into the kitchen, into the entrance, and there's this island in the middle, just walking the whole time I'm reading.
That sounds like a horrible day.
It's not bad. I mean, it's, you get exercise, I guess, while you're doing it. But it was like, okay, either that or I'm going to fall asleep and not get this thing done. Like,
well, I'm sure you gave it your best work. Because when we read books in one day,
we retain all of it. Yeah.
Right. Oh, totally.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That book was called "Oh, the Places You'll Go."
Oh.
And it took me the whole day. Took me the whole day to get through that.
Oh,
but I felt really good about the report that I gave at the end.
Right.
I mean, and that's an interesting aspect too. So, you went through all of the schooling. You got your PhD.
Mm-hmm.
When did you shift from? You shifted from social worker to counselor after the master's?
No, I actually had I actually was working in what I would describe as a social work position, even post-master's and during my doctoral program. And then I worked for a really great organization. And during the PhD program, it kind of became clear that I was going to have to pick my job or my school. And so at that time, I made a decision to move out of that program, and then I worked in a practice where I live, and I did that for a really long time. So I was working as a social worker before my master's, during, after, and then into the PhD program.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So what was it that drew you to... So, I mean, obviously the other aspects of your job, you're the clinical director of the counseling center on Trevecca's campus.
Mm-hmm.
And do you still teach here?
I teach, yes, in our grad program.
Okay.
And
so teaching and being a director,
yeah.
What was it that attracted you to that stuff?
Well, I've always wanted to teach at a collegiate level. I didn't know what. So I think that's why that psychology course kind of struck me, because it's funny, when I went back for my 10-year high school reunion, we opened up our time capsule, and I had written a letter to myself.
Capsules.
I know, it was a Coke bottle, but I wrote a letter to myself, and it talked about all these things I would be in 10 years, and being a professor was one of them. Actually, randomly, most of the things I said had come to fruition, even down to the car I was driving, which is crazy.
That doesn't sound random. That sounds intentional.
No, I don't do those kinds of intentional things in my life. So intention's so boring. I just want it to kind of happen. So I don't know. It's interesting looking back, but I got to Trevecca because I was working in a practice where I live, and my friend actually was the director here at the counseling center prior to me, and she was getting ready to transition into something else. And she called me and said, I think you'd really like this job, and I think you should apply for it. And I was like, well, what the heck? I remember we were going to Florida, and I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And I did it. And then we went to Florida and got back, and they called me for an interview, and I started here, and the rest just kind of fell into place. And
was teaching just a part of that package?
No, so no, teaching is separate from what my full-time job is. So when I got hired here, part of what just kind of happened naturally, organically, is I started doing some adjunct work for our grad program. My dissertation is in counselor development and supervision, and our doc program is around counseling development and supervision. So it was just a really natural fit. But it's something I really love. I love my job. I just adore it. And part of what I love about it is I don't do the same thing every day, and I get to do a lot of different things. And so I always tell people my job is I grow counselors, and part of that is what I do here at the counseling center. And then because we grow them so well, we serve our community really well, I believe. And then teaching is also part of that growing counselors. And then I do a lot of clinical supervision on the side as well. And it's another part of that. So
I think it really shows that you love your job.
Yeah, I really do.
I think you're fantastic at it.
Thanks.
I mean, as somebody who is a result of your job, like, I mean, yeah, your fingerprints are just on so much of who I am as a professional and as a person.
Yeah, and you mean that in a non-creepy way.
I do mean that in a non-creepy way. I don't know how to mean that in a creepy way, though. I'll have to.
I won't repeat it to you, or you'll hear it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that because not necessarily in the therapeutic field, but in a lot of other fields that I've worked in, you can always tell the people that are there because they feel like they have to be. Mm-hmm. And they're never the people who make an impact. I mean, I guess the impact can be, better not let myself get like that. Yeah. But I think when you're with somebody who loves what they're doing, and I would say just is passionate about that, I mean, I don't care what the subject matter is. I love having conversations with people who love what they do because I always take something away. And that's part of the origin of even this show was let the guest pick the movie, because then it's going to bleed out of them. Yeah. And it's not going to be, have to be a forced conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I ever get to a point I don't like it, then I will leave, because I think that, I think the inherent risk of being stuck in a place where, so I am like a lover of all things Rob Bell. And so one thing that he says is we want graduations, not funerals. Mm-hmm. And so I think when we get to a place where we're done, we need to graduate from it, and we don't need to die of it, because when we die of it, we affect a lot of people.
It's true.
And I think that's really true in educational settings and, or academic settings and in clinical work, because we have, as you said, our fingerprints on a lot of people. And so we don't want to mess that up. We have to be really intentional. So when it gets to that point, I'll go work at Starbucks. That's my next thing.
I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. You don't need to.
No, it's on the list. I'm going to do it. And
listen, Leigh-Ann and I both have leftover aprons. I could just give you an apron. You don't have to.
I mean, I don't know how to work the machine. I need to work the machine, and I just feel like they have a lot of opportunity to make people's mornings better.
It's true. And their health insurance is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then I'll probably do some interior design somewhere.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm thinking like the beach.
There you go.
That's the rest of my life. We can stop.
There you go. I mean, I feel like, especially with what we do, so much of what we do is tied to who we are. So if you're in counselor development, if you're helping people train to get the job done, and you hate what you're doing, how am I, as somebody who's being instructed on how to do it, supposed to take that? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to want to be like you, which, I mean, I can't imagine that that's something that anybody that works here strives for. Is we want to be the heroes. We want to be the models. I mean, I think it's a natural thing, and especially at Trevecca, because all of the professors still practice. Like they're still in active practice. And so it's not this theoretical, hey, here's how we did it back in my day. It's like, no, I'm still meeting with clients.
Yeah.
I'm still doing this.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm learning and thinking about and what I want to tell you about. And all of you have your populations or specialties and passions. And it's just something that I think is such a unique and awesome thing. And with as much work as you guys do, I can't imagine wanting to do it if you hated it. Like,
No, yeah.
It just seems like it would cost you so much as a person.
Yeah, I love it. It's
Nice.
It's a good gig.
Cool. So when do you want me to start here for the job that you were gonna?
You can start when you get licensed.
Oh, okay, cool. So I think that just means I need 950 more hours.
You can start in 950 hours.
Boom. Set the clock. Set it right now. Okay. So good place to transition into talking about a movie. What movie did you bring today?
I chose, well, first off, that's hard because I love movies so much. I love movies. I love TV. I love fiction.
I used to love recommending stuff to you.
Ugh.
And then I found out that you would only watch stuff when you got sick and then you would binge it.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Which, that's great. Because you got to be, you got to relax. You got to sit still and you got to do something.
Yeah, I have a lot of guilt about movies and TV because I feel like this is my anxiety. This is what my anxiety looks like, is I have guilt about movies and TV because I feel like I could be using those hours to read something useful.
Yeah, I get that.
And even if it's fiction, it feels like it's engaging my brain in a different way than TVs and movies. But I love them, and I think I love them because when I watch them, I forget that. I mean, it just is, everything stops, and I'm just there. But I chose Little Miss Sunshine.
Nice.
Which is an older movie, but I really love it. It's one of my faves.
Yeah, Leigh-Ann had not seen it.
Oh,
Which
wow.
I was shocked at.
Wow.
And it is so good.
Yeah, it's incredible.
What made you think about that movie?
Well, so when you asked me to do this, you kind of mentioned somewhere, or maybe I just intuited this, that you said to choose a movie that would represent my specialty or who I am. And so I don't know if I ever want to have a specialty because I think I would get really bored with that. I want to know a lot about a lot of things. And so that makes it really hard to pick a movie.
Well, that was one of the ways that I said pick it.
It really stuck.
Either come from that, or I always ask people two questions. What movie makes you want to be in a relationship? Or what movie makes you want to be alone forever? Because in my head, that's kind of thinking about what could we talk about that's good in relationships, or what could we talk about that's bad?
Well, yeah. So all of my favorite Adam Sandler movies don't fit in those categories. Because if it has Adam Sandler or Will Ferrell, I'm going to love it. And then Tombstone, those are like my go-tos that I always have to watch. But Little Miss Sunshine, I thought is such a good movie because I think it speaks to the reality of families in a way that a lot of movies don't. I mean, it doesn't really romanticize familial relationships. And it also, I don't know, it kind of balances the loneliness that sometimes we feel as individuals within our families, but also the way that we can grow in family and community in a really special way.
Yeah.
And I also think that Olive's character, the little girl, I don't know, I'm hoping that there's part of her that's always in me. So I just love her character too.
Yeah. An episode I recorded a little while ago with Noah Zoff. He did We Bought a Zoo. And I felt the same way about the little girl in that movie.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
And Leigh-Ann was like, oh, she's a 2. But she's like a super healthy 2 because she's helping take care. She's attending to other people's feelings. She's taking care of them, but it's not in a way that's like, this is for me kind of deal. And I think there was something so innocent and joyful about Olive that, yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of times in movies, they tend to portray the kiddo characters in those ways that, I mean, and then the underlying message in that, I think, is that as adults, we lose that, right? That we kind of lose that innocence. And, I mean, one thing I notice Olive really embracing is the dichotomy between losers and winners. So, you know, the movie opens up with Greg Kinnear's character saying there's two types of people in the world. There's losers and there's winners. And I think through the movie, she kind of gets to a place where she's like, oh, wow, I think we're both losers and winners. And
or at least I've got to figure out how to better define winner than maybe how Dad is saying to define it.
Yeah, for sure. But I think sometimes we are attracted to the younger characters in movies because it maybe feels like something that we lose when we move into adulthood. And I don't think that has to be the case all the time, you know. And I think
the world tries to grind it out of us.
Oh, sure.
And I wonder if I feel like most people experience some kind of existential crisis in their like late 20s kind of thing where you kind of have to go, oh, what am I about? Who am I? What do I want to do? And I feel like I hit a different kind of one in my mid 30s, which is only like 3 or 4 years ago, where I kind of had to be like, oh, was there some stuff I left behind that I didn't have to leave behind, that I actually really like about myself that I want to pick back up again? And one of those things for me is always, I like having an active imagination. I like having an active dream life of, oh, what if I tried to do this thing? I mean, that's how I ended up in this program, like able to do that. And I think that she's got a great like imagination. She's got the ability to not have fear about imagining and then trying. Yeah.
Well, and then there's, you know, the pageant comes, which, man, that pageant stuff, but the pageant comes at the end, and I think she does have a lot of fear. And there's this moment where she makes a decision, like, I'm gonna feel the fear, and I'm still gonna go out there and do the thing. And it's just really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like when the movie starts and we meet Greg Kinnear's character, he's like, well, gosh, I think it starts at the hospital first. Steve Carell's character, Frank, is the brother of Toni Collette's, whose name I don't remember in the movie.
Yeah, I don't either.
But he has just, I don't know the right language. It's not attempted suicide anymore, right? Because that makes it sound like you even failed that, which I think is something that he said.
I don't know. I think we can say that.
Yeah.
Just edit that part out, but I think it's okay.
Okay.
Let's not get stuck on the words.
Well, he had attempted suicide, and so she's going to the hospital to pick him up, and then takes him back to her place and stops off for a bucket of chicken on the way. And then that's where we meet kind of the whole family unit. So she's remarried to Greg Kinnear. His dad is there. She has her 15-year-old son from her previous marriage. There's Olive. And so they're all around the table interacting, talking. We find out the son has taken a vow of silence in his pursuit of being Air Force pilot. Yeah, which as soon as I heard he was 15, I was like, this guy's still got like 2 or 3 years left in high school. Is he going to, A, how does he even go to school if he's being silent? But B, that's a long, come on, man.
Yeah.
And you'd probably still have to go to college. But so it's an interesting scene because you kind of get who everybody is in that scene. Dad is a guy who's trying to conceptualize and come up with a system that I would say is going to be similar to your 7 Habits of Highly Effective People or your 4-Hour Work. It's like some kind of like philosophy system that he can
9
market.
9 simple steps system.
Yeah. Write a book about, do seminars about. His dad is with him. He's retired. He's been taken from an old folks home because he got kicked out.
Because he started using heroin.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we meet him as which I didn't know you could snort heroin. I thought it was just cocaine.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah. So that's how we meet him. We have the older kid, Olive, the mom, and then they get a call Yeah, saying that Olive, or the person who won the pageant that she was in, something happened where she can't move on to the next level. And so
she was caught with diet pills, which P.S. Olive's 8.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Which I read on the IMDb page while we were watching it. All of the little beauty queens in the movie were from real pageants.
Oh, wow.
Wearing their real costumes except Olive.
Uh-huh.
She was the only one that wasn't.
Uh-huh.
So they came in with all their
Wow.
actual stuff. So she gets the nod for Little Miss Sunshine and does the high-pitched little girl scream as she runs through the house and then immediately begins packing. And I looked over at Leigh-Ann and I was like, hey, you think you might want to let our little girl do pageants if we have a little girl? And she was like, oh, gosh, I don't know. I was like, I can be the pageant mom if you don't want to. That's okay. I'll get the Aquanet hairspray and I'll tease up my hair. It'll be great. So I don't know where they live that they had to drive to. New Mexico, Albuquerque.
Yeah, they were in. Were they in Albuquerque and they drove to Scottsdale or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
It's so I think it's what was it, like an 8-hour or 9-hour drive? So 2-day drive in a VW bus.
Because it was something like the pageant came up, but what did they go to Scottsdale for?
Oh, so I think the mom's aunt was the one who actually entered her into the qualifying pageant while she had gone there over the summer to spend the week or something. And so they were kind of reluctant even about the pageant thing in general, but the aunt had entered her and like introduced her to this world of pageantry, and Olive had fallen in love with it. So
yeah, the first time we see her, she's watching Miss America clips.
Yeah, sweet girl, trying to replicate what it looks like when you win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if everybody has their version of that. Like imagining that you're getting an Oscar or a Grammy.
Oh, sure. Yeah, don't we? I mean, I think we've all done that, right? Like, imagine ourselves receiving some kind of accolade.
And you hold up the hairbrush in the mirror or the shampoo bottle or whatever it is.
But so I grew up, 80s, 90s, and remember pageants being on, I didn't have cable growing up. So there were 4 channels and channel 16. And so that was something we would watch, is when they would have like Miss America pageant, then everyone would watch Miss America pageant. And I remember, feeling like Olive and like imagining like, what would it be like if I was, that beautiful and would win this crown that would tell everyone else that I was the most beautiful woman in the country. Yeah. So I think in some ways just remembering what that was like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. I think, so you grew up in Arkansas?
Uh-huh.
So I grew up in South Carolina.
Uh-huh.
And I think for me, it wasn't so much that it was on the television so much as every girl that I knew was doing pageants.
Oh,
it was
really?
like pageants and clogging were like the two, which
I had some clogging friends.
I don't even know if
you
that's still a thing.
You got to say clogging.
Yeah, just imagine.
Oh, it's a thing.
Take your tap shoes and loosen those taps.
Oh, those people are like badass. They can like do some things with their feet.
Oh yeah.
Normal people can't. But
but I think because of that, like I had to sit through a bunch of pageants. And like I knew what they were, and I actually even had 2 cousins that were debutantes.
Oh wow!
Because of their grandmother was in the debutante kind of society, and so they actually went through and were presented and all that kind of stuff, which I think is remnants of an old tradition or something along those lines. But so they go on this road trip. Didn't they go to Scottsdale because he was after some kind of deal for?
Yeah, a book. So I think the book publisher might have been in Scottsdale.
Yeah, he was trying to go meet with him or something like that.
Yeah.
Because Scottsdale is not on the way to...
See, I don't even know.
Yeah. It's like California, if you like are flexing your arm, like that's California. And then you got Arizona and New Mexico. Yeah, it's basically like you're just going out of your way instead of going towards the coast, which is where they should have.
Mm-hmm.
So they're on this road trip, and it's basically, I think, a way for them to put these characters who have things about them that clash in a really tiny space to get the clashes going. Because as they're in the van, they're talking, they're stopping off at these places. I think maybe while they're still at the dinner table is when we first find out about Steve Carell's like story of what happened. He says he fell in love with a grad student who didn't love him and ended up being with his chief professional rival.
Yes.
And then on top of that, he lost his job.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's like telling that to Olive against her dad's protests because he thinks that she shouldn't hear that, which I think is such an interesting. This is an interesting thing. Dad tries to guard her at the table, but then when they're at the table at the diner, starts to talk to her about if she eats ice cream, she's going to get fat, and does she really want to do that? So he wants to guard her from one thing, but he doesn't want to guard her from another.
Well, I think he wants to guard her from loserdom. I just made that word up. Or maybe it is a word.
Or at least how he defines it.
Yeah, so I think he sees Steve Carell's character as a loser and a failure, and so it's almost like he doesn't want to introduce that energy into his house, right? And then when they're at the table in the cafe on the road trip, and so there's this conversation where he says to Olive's character, she orders ice cream for breakfast, and or was it breakfast?
Yeah, she ordered waffles and ice cream.
Wow, which sounds amazing.
It
and
does.
So he says, he kind of goes into this dialogue around
ice cream's made of cream.
Yeah,
cream has fat in it.
Fat will make you fat.
Yeah.
And do you think Miss America eats ice cream? And I actually love that scene because you see this kid kind of struggling. Like she's actually, I think it's really rare as an adult. No, I don't think it's rare. I take that back. I think there are some adults who kind of think about there's two kinds of people in the world, and fill in the two kinds of people with whatever kind of people their community or their.
We always look to make things binary.
Oh yeah,
just
sure.
so that we can either be in or we can be out.
Right. And so I think that you see the dad doing that. Like he's kind of living in that idea that like there are these two people and this family is going to be these kinds of people and these other kind of people are not welcome here. And so what you see at the dining room or at the table in the cafe is he's starting to introduce his daughter to that idea, like kind of sign her up for that way of viewing the world. And there's all these other people at the table that
none of them agree with him.
They're not hashtag winners, right? I mean, they're living proof that there is no binary, and they're like, okay, let's show you a different way, right? So when she says, should I eat ice cream? Or no, she says, actually, I don't think I'll eat my ice cream. And all these other people are like, well, give it to me. I love ice cream. I love ice cream for breakfast.
Everybody else at the table, but the dad grabs a spoon and they start eating. And you see on her face this wrestling with, oh my gosh, they're eating it, but I don't think I should. And then she goes, everybody stop. Don't eat it all. And then
I want my ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
beautiful. I got
beautiful.
so much joy from that part.
Yeah.
And I think there are several scenes in the movie that show that clearly this family doesn't have it all, quote unquote, together. Mm-hmm. But even if they don't get it right the first time, they always end up coming back around to, we love each other, we got each other's back, and we're gonna defend our tribe from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Even if at times we clash, nobody else is going to step into this circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hated that part. I thought that Greg Kinnear was just such a butthead. Just because to say that to a little girl, and I could see smoke coming out of Leigh-Ann's ears at that part too. Because I think he knew how much she loved pageants, and this was just something she got so excited about. And what's weird is it seems like it comes out of nowhere. It seems like he had something on his mind, and I can't remember if this is before he finds out that his book deal or whatever is not going to go through. So if he's feeling rejected,
I think
at
it's
the time,
before, yeah.
Yeah, but it seems like something's on his mind. He starts in with that because he just so methodically leads her to don't eat that ice cream. When he could have, as a dad, just said, I don't know, ice cream for breakfast. Why don't we save that for dinner? Like, I mean, it could have been such a, but he like takes her to, hey, you love Miss America. You know, if ice cream has fat and you get fat if you eat it, do you think Miss America contestants are fat or skinny? Oh, okay. So if they're skinny, do you think they eat? And it just seemed like such a picking apart of what's inside of her.
Yeah.
And it just felt gross and grimy. And I was really glad when the other family members like grabbed a spoon, because I thought it seemed like a way of just everybody else going, hey, Olive, Dad's dumb. Don't listen to him. He's wrong right here.
Yeah. Well, I think Dad, yes, dumb, but also just really scared, right?
Yeah.
Because what would it mean if there were more than two kinds of people in the world? And what would that mean about him and the work that he's done? And
I think it's probably more like he has said there's two kinds, and he has hung his hat of him being a winner on this deal going through. And so if it doesn't go through, what does that mean for him? Is he a loser? And he can't. Like, if he's painted this picture with only two colors, he can't be a loser. You know? And so I think it's like he created a world that he has now boxed himself into.
yeah.
And he's just so scared of ending up in the other group.
Yeah. And anyone he loves being in the other group.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like in some ways the movie is this opportunity to see that every one of the characters would fit in that category of loser, right? That all of them are like, have created these narratives
All
for
of
themselves. All of them. Ooh, maybe they did it on purpose. They've all created these narratives for themselves that, you know, one thing what I'm thinking about as I'm talking about this is when they have to push the van because the clutch goes out. So they have to like push the van because it won't start until it's going 15 miles an hour. And every time the uncle pushes the van, he says, I'm the preeminent scholar in Proust. And then he's pushing the van and then, you know, has to like run to jump in the side. So like this constant struggle between I've created this life and narrative for myself. And in fact, sometimes in life, those narratives that we lean so heavily on don't reflect what we're really living. And that we are these dichotomies of both winner and loser. And so each one of the characters, I think, kind of goes through that. Even the dad goes through it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's just really beautiful. And then how they come together in it. There's this scene, the first time they have to push the van. So, you know, they're at the mechanic and the mechanic says like, there's a way out of this. You can push the van so it'll go 15 miles an hour and then you can, you know, you'll make it work. And so they're all doing that.
Just like Back to the Future.
Similar. Yes. And they, you know, and none of them are excited about doing it. And then they do it and they all hop in the van and they're like high-fiving each other. And I don't remember what Steve Carell's character says, but something to the effect of, you know, like that was really exceptional or we did that together. And I had this memory of when I was in high school. You know, I was raised by a single mom, so a lot of things were really hard, but were really good too. And my mom tried really hard to take us on vacation pretty regularly. And we met all of our family actually in South Carolina to go to the beach. And, you know, looking back as a parent and knowing how much stuff costs now, I'm sure that was really a big deal for my mom. And, she let us take a friend that hung out with us.
The vacation friend.
Well, so his name was Jamie Prater, and he was always at our house.
You took a boy?
Yeah, nothing romantic. Mike, I hope Jamie Prater is listening to this. He's probably not, but he was hilarious and was a kid that was always at our house. And he'd never been out of the state. And my mom felt sorry for him, so she took Prater. That's what we called him. And we were on our way back from vacation, and my mom had cellulitis in her knee because she'd scraped her knee.
I don't know what that is.
It's like an infection of man, do I have to say what I think it is? Because it's going to make me sound like an idiot. I don't know. It's something
You're
bad.
a doctor, so I'm going to trust
Not that
whatever
kind
you
of
say.
doctor. Not that kind. But she had scraped her knee and developed this thing, and her knee had swelled to 3 times its size. And it was very painful. And my mom had a Ford Taurus, and there were 6 of us in a Ford Taurus, and her air conditioner goes out. And I remember we were in this, and it was July.
In South Carolina.
Ugh. And Arkansas, which if you haven't had the joy of living in those 2 states in July, then count yourself lucky. But we're all in this car, sweating, gross. My mom has her foot on the console, letting us teenagers drive because she has to keep her foot up. And I just have this memory of driving through Memphis, singing at the top of our lungs. Like, this is, a shit show. And can I cuss on here?
Sure.
Okay, good. And because I do. And here we are, like, having the time of our lives. And
so even in this weirdly difficult situation, you were able to find and recognize, like, this is great.
Yeah, like, this is my familia. These are my people. And although, this is kind of embarrassing and not the best, and man, would I really like to be in a nice car with an air conditioner. Like, these are my people, and we just are having a blast, and we're making the best of it. And when I watched that scene in the movie, I really thought about that, because I think every family has those stories. I mean, it's not in the perfect times where we all dress up in our white shirts and khaki pants to go get our pictures made on the beach, or we all show up
barefoot.
That's right. You gotta be barefoot. Or, we all show up at Thanksgiving carrying, the dishes that our grandparents gave us, and we sit down to eat in this beautiful thing. That's not where the stories are made. The stories are made in the messy and in the hard. And it's also like where the fun is, I think, So
that's what I think is so interesting about your Ford Taurus story is I feel like a lot of times for me, I have to look back to find that I had joy in those moments. And you were able to find it in the moment. And I just think that's so rare.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to romanticize it, because I'm sure there were a lot of hours driving through those hot states where I'm like, dear God, could we have some AC? But just, and I think that's the point, that looking back, I probably would not have characterized that as the greatest vacation I've ever taken, or like the greatest road trip. But now I'm like, man, that's, it's in the hard that we develop these stories of our life. The stories of my life rarely sound like my family and I had paid all of our bills, and we had all dressed in our nicest clothes and showed up at the greatest restaurant for dinner.
Yeah.
That's not what the stories sound like. They sound like, I was telling you, we're staying in a 400 square foot space while we're painting our house. Those are where the stories come from, in the hard. And I think that's what this movie is about.
Yeah. And I love that there's moments in it where each of the characters fall down and the others extend a hand to pick them up. Like, I think with the granddad, I don't know, maybe it's just that he's even living in the house, but I think, there's moments where he's so, profane, I guess is where I would go with
obscene,
that.
yeah.
And then even in this moment where they're at a gas station and he asks Frank to go in and buy him porn.
And he said, buy yourself something too.
Yes, is so gross about it, and is like, you know what? Get yourself something too. Get yourself something nice. Like, it's just this weird, like, I don't know. He's got this rough exterior, but he also has that grandpa of just like, here's a 20, get what I want, and then use the rest to like make yourself happy. Like, and then I think his relationship with Olive, like, the night of when they were in the cafe and the ice cream thing happened, and I think Olive is sleeping in the same bedroom as him right before he grabs his heroin to do that. He like comes to her and he says, I love you, and it's not because you're smart or because he's like, it's because you're beautiful on the inside and the out. And you just see this grandpa love just like spilling over the top of him and sloshing all over her.
Yeah, he
and
knew what she needed to hear.
Yeah, it was so incredible that he was able to just kind of know his granddaughter enough to like speak this exactly when and what she needed into her. And then he dies.
Yeah.
From a heroin overdose. And so that puts another wrinkle in their plans where, you know, they are on the way to this pageant, but the grief liaison, which I don't know if she would be
Linda.
a social worker or yeah, that was hilarious that the doctor just yells as loud as he can. You know, is trying to line up what to do next, and then Greg Kinnear's so focused on, I got to get to this certain place at a certain time, and she ends up yelling at him like, "You are not the only one who had someone die today."
Yeah.
And then they smuggle the body out of the hospital
They
and get
sure
back
do.
on the road, which I, in my terribleness, I thought, oh, that would be an interesting youth group game if we wrapped up some kind of object that was oblong and difficult to hold and made them
That's why you're not a youth minister anymore.
Yeah, who would ever have been able to identify why? That's crazy. But they get going, and you know, the 15-year-old son, they're driving along, and Olive is thinking that she's playing a game, and she shows him these little pictures of, it's like the circle, and if you're not colorblind, you can see that there's a letter that's a different color in the middle of another color, but if you are, it'll all look the same. And he can't identify the color. And it's this weird moment where she's like, "Hey, do you see the letter?" And he can't speak, so he writes what? And then Steve Carell Frank realizes what's going on, and he says, "Oh, you can't be colorblind and fly jets." And he has a moment, I think that is an existential crisis there, where he has oriented his life so heavily in one direction with one singular goal, and all of a sudden in one moment finds out that's not going to be possible.
Yeah, so sad.
That he's banging up against the side of the van, and they have to pull over, and he runs out and like yells a profanity as loud as he can in that field. And I just, I think back, and there's definitely moments in my life where something shifts and my foundation gets rocked, and it all of a sudden, whatever direction that I was like, with complete certainty I'm heading that way, it becomes obvious. Oh no, I can't. That's not, I'm not going to be able to head that way. And you have to then wrestle with, like, I remember telling someone, I built my identity on what I did as a youth pastor. And then when I left that, I really did have this complete like crisis of identity, because if who I am was what I did and I don't do that anymore, then who am I?
Yeah.
And it really was I don't know who I am anymore. And I think he hit something like that. Mom tries to talk to him, and that's a no-go. He immediately, and I guess that's coming from a place of fear, where he lashes out like in rage at all of them. I'm trying to think. I don't think it was hurt, because they didn't really do that to him. But
I kind of wonder if he was afraid of being. I mean, I think what he says to them just shows that he clearly sees all these disappointments. That he
thinks they're losers.
Yeah, he thinks they're losers.
And this was
right?
his ticket out.
Right, like there are all these things that you got. Like you're living this life to hide all these disappointments.
And he yells it out.
Yeah,
divorced,
he does.
Suicide. I don't remember the other things.
Yeah, bankrupt. I think, and he said, and I think in that you hear him saying like, I was longing to create something better for myself, and by hitching up to y'all's wagon. And I really see that, like, there can be failure and disappointment in my life too.
Yeah.
Which, man, that's a hard thing it's a hard thing for any of us. I think, I think that in retrospect, those are places where we know there's a lot of growth and learning. But in the middle of those kinds of disappointments, it doesn't feel like a place of growth and learning.
It's tough to see past the immediate.
Oh, yeah,
like,
for sure.
Shame and hurt and guilt and like fear.
Yeah.
And then when mom tries to talk to him and realizes this isn't going to happen, and she walks up, she sends down Olive, and I was like, I nudged Leigh-Ann. I was like, she's sending the big gun. Here it comes.
With her red cowboy boots.
Oh, the red cowboy
boots. And her red
boots.
scrunchie.
And the red headband? I don't know, the sweatband.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she comes down and just loves on him.
Mm-hmm.
And that...
She doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just is with.
Yes. I was going to say there's something about her presence that just shakes him out of... it doesn't fix anything. It doesn't get a different result, but it shakes him out of whatever he's in.
Mm-hmm.
And he just gets up and they walk back to the van and they get going.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, 2 episodes ago, Emily Party talked about the difference between saying to somebody who's in pain, me too, versus saying you're not doing this alone. Like, you don't have to do this alone. You're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And how sometimes we can't say me too. Like, I'm a guy. She specializes in like birth and grief and loss and things like that. Like, I'm never going to say I know what it's like for a miscarriage, but I can say to somebody, I'm going to be with you.
Yeah.
You're not going to be alone in this.
Mm-hmm.
And Olive models that, really beautifully, with her family.
Yeah.
So they're going again. Dad eventually finds out that he's not getting his book deal or whatever kind of deal it was. So he falls apart, and you can see that mom... Something was hinging on that. I guess maybe they were having money problems or something, because they were depending upon him to get that deal.
Yeah.
So she ends up, angry eyebrows, arms crossed, standing in front of the van when he just gets back in.
Mm-hmm.
And also, he does something that I know that I have done and I don't want to do. And I'm trying to... He's clearly upset. He's walking back. She's trying to figure out what's going on. Why are you mad? This. And he just very quickly was like, you don't think I asked that? It's like, I've done everything. I've asked all the questions. I don't need you to ask me anything. Just leave me alone. And I seeing something like that, I can't help but think about the times I've done it. And Leigh-Ann has been asking me those questions, and I try to like just shut it down. And seeing it in a movie scene, I just realized, oh man, I'm so thankful that my wife loves me so much that she never does what I ask when it comes to like, just, I got it. Leave me alone. This kind of thing. Ugh, I'm so glad.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really neat scene, because I think you see both the wife and the husband kind of, not attacking, that's not the right word, but they're kind of coming at each other from a place of their own.
Pursuing.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're both so hurt and scared. And so her questions are coming from a place of hurt and scared. And he's protecting himself because he's so hurt and scared. And so, I think that's a common thing in marriage, that, ideally what we can do is kind of slow that down and realize, what's happening in me and what's happening in my partner. But, that's hard to do on the daily. And so I think it's a really realistic scene.
Yeah.
And, and I think it probably feels really, I don't know, like really attractive to watch as a viewer, because we all can imagine times that we've been in places like that, where it's felt easier to shut ourselves down than to share what's happening with our community and the people around us that we know love us. So,
yeah, one of the things I liked the most about this was, you look at something like, when we were growing up, the Brady Bunch or Full House, and it's like the perfect family who has one problem, but they end up, and maybe it causes a momentary conflict, but they end up circling back at the end, and not only is the problem solved, but they're like, and we love each other so much.
Yeah.
And I think this movie is so much more realistic, because almost no problems get solved.
No.
And everybody at one point or another is a complete butthead to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, in the middle of being a butthead, they can still love each other and support each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that nobody learns anything, and it's not that no progress is made on anything, but it's like nobody has to clean themselves up to come back and join the party.
Yeah.
And love.
Yeah.
Like, they can be a butthead and then scream the F word as loud as they can on the side of the road, and then just get up and walk back to the van and get back in it. And nobody in the family rejects them. Nobody says, nope, you did the thing, you're out, get back. They just, yeah, you're back in, come on, cool.
Yeah.
Let's just keep going.
I mean, I think in healthy families, we can do that. We can be ourselves and have our proverbial F-bomb screaming on the side of the road and still get welcomed back into the fold.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think, it's so attractive and so appealing to see, a family that is so chaotic and also just represents ideally what family should look like. Mm-hmm. That, I think families are these like combinations of imperfect people, and ideally we can support each other in that. We can be with each other in that.
Yeah, there was a weird, which maybe this is only where they ended up at the end, because I think certainly based on what we've been talking about so far, there's parts in the middle where it's not there, but a weird just acceptance of this is who these other people are, and they're mine, and I love them, and I'm with them. And there's little moments for every one of them in the movie. Frank is in the gas station buying the porn, and the grad student he was in love with walks up to him, and he immediately puts his hands behind his back because he still has the bandages on from where he slit his wrists, because he doesn't want to be seen. And he looks outside, and his chief Proust scholar writer rival is out there in the car waiting on the grad student. And when he comes back to the van, I think Grandpa says something to him about they're who even needs them? I mean, but there's these moments of support. They all rally around the son when he finds out he's colorblind. But perhaps the most beautiful part of the whole movie is once they get to the pageant, literally parking the van, best and coolest.
Yes.
Let me have something like that in a Fast and the Furious movie, and I would be happy. They realize they're running late for the registration, so as soon as the van stops, without even asking or coming up with a plan or thinking, Frank gets out and runs.
Yes.
To try to get to the registration.
Yes.
Everyone joins him, minutes after he's already there. And they say, it's 3:05. You're supposed to register by 3. We're not going to let you in. Everybody's there. They're all pleading. They let her in, and then they say that they got to get ready for the swimsuit competition.
Oh, yes.
Which I just thought, really, with little girls, swimsuits already. But they get to the talent portion. Oh, the moment with Miss California where she asks her if she eats ice cream.
Oh, yeah. And she says, I love ice cream.
Yeah. Chocolate Cherry Garcia, although I think that's a yogurt, but I still love it. I think it's a good depiction of the stuff we say around or to our kids. Even if we realize, whoops, I shouldn't have said that, and we try to erase what we just said by whatever. Yeah. It's in there. It's on the hard drive. And it could be running in the background. Because that conversation was in the first third of the movie, and she was still thinking on it.
Yeah.
And I love that. It was almost like the final, oh my gosh, she actually is in that world, and she eats ice cream, so it's okay. I can be me and still be a part of this thing. And then they get to the talent portion. Somebody comes up to her, gets her CD with her music on it because she said she's a dancer. What track? Number 12. She gets out on the stage, and they put the music on, and it's Super Freak by Rick James.
Yeah, it is.
Which I knew it was some ridiculous song. I thought it was going to be something worse. I thought it was going to be Baby Got Back or something. But then she says, I dedicate this to Grandpa because he taught me all these moves, and it's a total stripper routine. And this little nugget of a little girl just doing this stripper routine, everybody's jaw drops open. People start booing her.
Yeah, so sad.
People start walking out, and then like one by one, her family shows up on the stage. Dad gets up in his tucked in, button up Panama Jack shirt to his khaki pants with a braided leather belt and white New Balances with tube socks pulled up. Uncle gets up there, brother gets up there, and they're doing the moves with her. And then mom comes running up, and it's just this, I don't care what anybody in the audience thinks. This is our girl.
Yeah.
We are with her. We love her. And it's just such this beautiful, supportive, accepting moment.
Yeah. Yeah. It just makes you laugh and cry at the same time.
Because she's not winning. But I think part of this whole thing is, what's a winner? What's a loser? Oh, and somebody even says, who was it? Somebody said, you want to know what a real winner is? A real winner is somebody who's going to try even if there's a chance they could fail, or even if they're scared. Somebody says that to her.
Yeah, I think it was the dad, maybe. I think it's the dad, remember? Because he comes back and says, no, it wasn't the dad. Who was it? I can't remember. But he actually, so the brother and the dad both come back and say, we don't want her to do this. Like, they start noticing that this is this production, and all of these girls are one thing. Yeah. And Olive is not that thing. Right. She's not in on the deal.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know she's not in. And they don't want her to hurt. They want to protect her. And she makes a decision to go out anyway and do the thing. And yeah, it was so brave, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that tough? I mean, you have 3 kids. How do you figure out the balance between protecting them, guarding them, and also giving them agency to go, is this something that I want to do?
Yeah, that's been harder than I would have ever anticipated. I mean, I think there's so many things about being a parent that you don't know is going to grow you and is going to come your way. But it's almost like you take your heart out of your chest and you like send it to school every day, knowing that it's going to get stomped on and hurt, and there's not a lot you can do about it. And but also knowing that those are the things that grow us and grow our kids. Another quick story, when I went to a very small school before my parents divorced. It was 7th through 12th grade. And when I entered 7th grade, I decided, me and my best friend, who was a pageant queen actually, decided we were going to try out for the cheerleading squad. So we would be trying out with like seniors in high school, right? And there were 2 spots open because 2 girls had graduated, and then everyone else on the team were going to be seniors. So these 2 little sweet 7th graders. I mean, I wish I could show you my 7th grade picture. I was a total nerd. Decided we were going to try out for cheerleading. And I remember practicing a cartwheel for hours and not being able to do a cartwheel.
I still can't. I've never been able to do a cartwheel.
I still can't do a cartwheel. But I remember being on my lawn and practicing a cartwheel. And I remember my mom coming out on the porch and saying, "You're killing it. Keep going. You got this." And driving me to school that day and wishing me luck and picking me up after and telling me she's so sorry I didn't get it. And there's no way she wouldn't have known that I wasn't going to get it. Right?
Yeah.
And so last year, my oldest tried out for a team at school, and it was swim team, and she had just been practicing swim for like 3 months prior to trying out. And I didn't know. And I remember
you didn't know she'd been practicing? Or
I didn't know if she'd get it. Yeah. I didn't know if she would get it. And I remember her leaving for school that day and just feeling more anxiety than I've ever personally felt for anything I have ever tried to do. Huh. Like, oh, my baby's going to go to this thing, and I don't know if it's going to hurt her. And she might get really hurt and disappointed, and I have to let her. Like, I can't protect her from it. And I just thought about myself. I mean, I was literally her age trying out for cheerleading, and my mom allowing me that same grace.
So part of you is seeing your heart walk out the door.
Mm-hmm.
And then another part of you is having this kind of flashback
Mm-hmm.
moment and seeing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And knowing that it hurt and knowing that it felt devastating, but also knowing that, you know, in my 40-year-old body now, that it feels really different and I wouldn't take it back. And I think parents have to be okay with letting our kids get hurt, because that's how we grow.
Yeah.
That's how our skin grows. That's how our resilience grows, and our fortitude and our, you know, our stick-to-itness. But it's hard. It's so hard.
Yeah. And I would imagine that that's where the need for the safe harbor attachment really comes in, because if you've, you know, loved your kid in a way that has taught them you can always run back here, you know, pass or fail, success or not.
Yeah.
This is your place. You can always, you know, we'll always be here to love you and accept you no matter what. I would imagine that it doesn't make it any easier as the parent, but I think it would give the kid the ability to exercise more courage.
Yeah.
To know, all right, no matter what I do or who I am, there's always home.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, for those of us that have come from single parent, you know, homes, for those of us who have come from, you know, places where, you know, if we had to take out the giant sheet of butcher paper and draw exactly what we would have said our family should have looked like, maybe if it didn't match that, you know, it gives us the chance to move forward going, yeah, but I can create something different. Like I can do something moving forward that maybe is a little bit different than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think.
And ultimately, I think that's what Olive had with her family.
Oh, for sure.
And them jumping up on stage modeled it. Like, hey, if you get this or if you don't, we're going to dance with you anyway.
Yeah, you're not alone in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we value you even when in your, you know, and you're not belonging. You belong here.
Yeah. They recognize that she added something to the family. And I think there's something in that is that lights something up in me, to where even in a family unit, you can recognize, you know, hey, this person, it's not just that they're a part of the family, but they add something that wouldn't be here if they weren't here.
Yeah.
I think even Steve Carell's character Frank realized that he had something like that, which, you know, anybody that's going to have suicidal ideations, you get to that point where you think, I don't add anything to anybody and nobody would miss me if I was gone. And then you're there. And so to realize, oh, now he adds something to the brother. He adds something to Olive. He adds something to the dad. Like, and I think it helped bring him back to a place.
Yeah, it gave him he had a place. Yeah, he had a place. He had a family.
He got his why back.
Yeah, he got his why back. Yeah. I mean, good movies, I think we always want them to continue, right? We want to know what the rest of the story is. And yeah, it makes me wonder what it would be like for him moving forward. That he's kind of called to an opportunity to figure out what's next for himself. That maybe this narrative that he's created for himself as, you know, the preemptive pro scholar is not really who he is.
Yeah.
And not really what's important.
Yeah. Great movie. So let's say this is typically the place in the show where I tell somebody, hey, plug your thing, get some clients. But I mean, I don't know if that's really, I mean, you have 3 different hats that you wear. So I don't know if that's really something that is even possible for you to get clients outside of Trevecca and the student body. So you got anything you want to plug?
Well, I mean, I have a very small private practice.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. and it's referral only.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm around if people want to talk to me, I guess.
So should we say people get in contact with me, and then if I want to refer them to you, I can refer them to you?
Yeah, sure. Or, they can email me if they want. I mean, if anybody hears this and thinks like, oh, I got a question, or I hate what you said about this. I love kind feedback.
You want them to at you? Okay.
Sure, I don't like trolls, but sure.
So how can they reach you?
So my work email is shopkins@trevecca.edu, or Shopkins, which I didn't invent, but wish I had.
There you go. So if somebody is thinking that, maybe they would like to see you as a client, they feel like there could be a connection, or maybe even if they just have, a comment or a thought they'd like to express or ask about, they can email you there.
Sure.
Nice. Well, Doc, thank you so much. I mean, like, to say that this is an honor and to say it is exciting doesn't even quite cover it for me. Like, I'm thankful for you in such a myriad of ways that I'm even blanking right now. But like I said before, you're just such a special person, and I am so thankful that I got to train underneath you, and that I get to be your friend, and just that I get to have you in my life, because I just think you're so incredible.
Well, thanks. I'm really glad to do it. You know this about me. I'm a huge podcast addict. I mean, I have a very long commute, so I listen to countless hours of podcasts. So this is my first one to be on. It's pretty fun.
There you go.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, hopefully we'll be able to have you back again without having to reschedule it. To say that life happens is, I mean, a great example of this. And honestly, you're not the only guest that I've had to reschedule with. It just shows you how much I care about you, that I'm going to keep coming after you.
Well, thanks. So. You just got to keep bothering me. I'll say yes eventually.
Maybe I'll do like a paparazzi thing, and as you're getting out your car one day, I'll run up with the microphone and be like, all right, so tell me about the movie.
What movies have you watched?
The Story of Us with Michelle Pfeiffer. What are your comments?
I love that movie.
That was your original one.
Yeah, that's
I know.
a great movie.
We'll circle back to that one.
Okay.
Cool.
Thanks.
Tomorrow is April the 25th, which means that it's my brother Caleb's birthday. He's my little brother in age, but he's my big brother in size, because he is larger than I am. But it's not just a physical largeness, Leigh-Ann. It's a largeness of heart. And I don't mean in one of those congenital heart defect ways. I mean in the fact that my brother has the biggest heart of anyone on earth. Yeah. And just is the most loving and awesome and caring and helpful person. And I just love him a lot. And I just want to say happy birthday, little buddy. Happy 32.
Birthday. Happy birthday, Caleb.
Yeah.
And also, happy birthday, Mom, the day after that.
That's true. Yeah. It's your mom's birthday the day after that. What are some things you love about your mom?
Oh my gosh. I could go on for years. I think my mom is one of the strongest, bravest, most loving, and there's this indescribable quality about her. Yeah, she's like my best friend. I love her so much. Happy birthday, Mom.
Aw.
For your birthday, I'm going to get a tattoo that says Mom in a heart.
But if she holds her arm up, it'll say, wow.
Yeah. She'll love it.
Planned it that way. So this past week was your birthday, and we celebrated on Friday by going to Chattanooga and getting some delicious food and hanging out with your parents. Mm-hmm. And on the way back, we got to listen to the episode that we had on today. And in an effort to collect some of your thoughts on the episode, I held an iPhone up to your mouth while you dictated those thoughts while you were driving.
Turned out really well.
So, I mean, what did you think? First off, what did you think about the movie?
Ooh, I loved the movie. I had never seen it. Fun fact.
Yeah.
This is one that...
so surprised. It just feels like it would be a movie that you would love.
Yeah.
that you would have.
And it was. So fair point. I have always like heard about it and wanted to see it. I just, I don't know, just one of those that I never have.
Especially with Steve Carell in it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm really glad that I've seen it now and that I know all of the references to it and such. And yeah, I thought it was so good. I mean, it was different. I don't know if I can even fairly say that it was different than I expected, because I'm not sure what I expected. I knew that I knew there was a little girl in it who was, you know, happy and quirky and stuff like that. And that's about it. So the grandpa dying, the taking of the body from the hospital, all of that was very shocking and unexpected for me and funny. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a great movie about like the messiness of family.
Yeah. Yeah. So what were some of the thoughts that you dictated into an iPhone as we were?
If I read them as is, nobody would understand anything.
I think you should read. What was the one that you were saying before we?
Oh no, I think that I deleted it.
Oh, that's a mistake.
I know. It was something like, the thing that I was trying to say was late to registration, and it came out like, it was like lay up a station or something like that. I don't know. I'm making that up, but it was the Mad Gab game, we decided, where you put a lot of unrelated words together and then it sounds like something else.
I love that game.
Me too.
I used to have kids in my middle school group play it. One of the kids I could always see in the back of the room with her fingers in her ears, but her mouth moving, trying to pronounce the words. Yeah.
That's a game that the Forsyths played, and it was one of the infamous family game night fights. All of our competitive side would come out.
Was this the extended family or
No,
just
the four of us?
Oh, because I've seen the extended family competitiveness come out.
Yeah, but none of the extended family competitiveness is less serious. I mean, I know that we are competitive, but it never turns like into a real argument. With just the four of us, we all have opinions about the right way to do things. And so in some scenarios that can be a real disadvantage to our functioning as a team because we end up all having the idea of like, what's the right way to do this? And so I don't know what the cause of it was that night, but I just remember being so excited to play. And then eventually it just deteriorated into us all being mad at each other. And I think we eventually came around, but.
And that was the last time that Leigh-Ann ever spoke to her family. 20 years ago.
Yeah. So some of my real thoughts on the episode and the movie. When you guys were talking about Greg Kinnear's character, who I don't know the character name, but I just know Greg Kinnear. You guys were talking about his winner and loser thing and like why he is the way that he is. And I actually don't remember whether or not you said this or not. I just had the thought and I think I dictated it before I forgot it. But what it made me think of was somebody being really averse to things that they don't like about themselves or that they're like afraid of in themselves. So for him, I think he was so afraid of being a loser, quote unquote, that he projected that onto everybody in his life and like even made the whole system of, you know, winner versus loser. I think so much of that was probably out of him just wanting to be a winner and like not wanting to be a loser. So it wasn't about other people being winners and losers. It was about him, you know, getting to a point where he felt like he was just where he was a winner. It was just interesting. I think I've come across that in a lot of different arenas, like at school and work. And typically if there's something that's upsetting me about another person, it's usually more about me than them. And that's what that made me think of.
Yeah. And I don't know if that came from, you know, with his character, if that came from somebody calling him a loser, or I don't know if it was just that he had created this, 9-step system to being a winner and had basically painted the world in these two colors of winner and loser. And because he had fully invested in this system that he created, he could not allow himself to be a loser.
Yeah.
And I think, to a certain degree, he looked at all of the other people in the van as losers.
Mm-hmm.
Except maybe he was undecided on Olive.
Yeah. He was trying to make her into a winner.
Yeah.
I think that's what made me have that thought, is that he was trying so hard to make her into a winner, but it wasn't about her.
His definition of a winner, though.
Yeah.
Because I think Olive would say that about herself, that she's a winner.
Oh, for sure. No, I would never think. Yeah, I didn't think that she wasn't. I just think.
Oh, no, but that's what I'm saying is about him. Who gets to decide who's a winner and a loser? In that case, he was the person deciding.
He was trying to decide.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the registration line that I tried to dictate, I think the thought behind that was about the part when they are showing up late to registration, and they're however many minutes, they're like, they just missed it, and they're not going to be able to register. Like, Olive's not going to be able to compete. And so they freak out, and they're like, they're protesting. And then this guy eventually off to the side is kind of like, oh yeah, we can still include him. When I saw that, and then just as I listened to you and Dr. Hopkins talk through it, I just thought, like, that is, I guess I had some stuff last week with work that was kind of like that. Like, we had an event, and there was some little small details that just ended up, we got there and we didn't have this sign that we needed, and we just had to roll with it and deal. And so that's why this thought popped into my head, just that you're not always going to be able to register. There's not always going to be that guy off to the side who's like, no, you can do it. And I mean, for the sake of the movie, that's great, because it would have been a real bummer of a movie if that was the ending. But just in real life, that usually things like that, I would say more often than not, don't work out. And then you just have your family. And I think that's why it's so important to create that sense of belonging within the family, like a safe place that you can have those disappointments together, and that you almost experience those things together. Sort of like what Dr. Hopkins talked about with her, the road trip that sort of on paper would have been miserable, but she ends up looking back and, seeing that as just this really great time. When she was telling that story, I looked back on so many road trips as a kid where we didn't eat till, 12 o'clock at night because Dad didn't want to stop and, for food. And then by the time he did, all the places were closed. And, there are so many of those little stories that in the moment are terrible, or that we think are terrible, but those are the stories that we tell in adulthood, as some of our best memories. So, yeah, I don't know.
Or as my little brother would say, those are some good rememberings.
Oh, yes. Those are the best rememberings. Then when you and Dr. Hopkins were talking about the mom and dad fighting, like after the thing happens with his deal, and I forget which one of you said it. I remember her talking about being able to step back and look at what's going on in yourself. So her, in the movie, the mom being hurt and afraid, and that's why she's asking the questions, and then the dad being hurt and afraid as well, and reacting out of that. And you sort of mentioned, the times that this happens with us, and I just thought about how helpful it is in the moment, or a little bit after the moment, more often than not, for us to both try to understand what's going on kind of behind the scenes with each other. But also there's so many times when we're really not good at that. But we try, sometimes we get it sooner, sometimes we get it later, but that's one of the things I think that has helped us the most in our marriage and in relating with each other, is being able eventually, even if it takes a while, to get to what's going on behind the words, behind the questions, behind the quote unquote argument. Because usually if we can get to that, like if we can figure out what the feelings are, it almost like diffuses the tension of, an argument.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that, there was somebody that I was talking with last week when they asked me what you did for a living. And I said, oh, she's a social worker. And they said, you're a therapist and she's a social worker? What do you guys have, like a world peace household? Like where everything is like nice and good and peaceful all the time?
Nope.
And I was like, no, it's more like a UFC octagon. We get in there and break bones. Nah. I think that one of the things that I love the most about our marriage is that we both try. Mm-hmm. But trying doesn't mean succeeding on the first try all the time. And so sometimes it takes us a little while to understand each other. But I think that one of the things that enables us to continue to try is the feeling of security and safety that comes along with knowing, even in times of misunderstanding, it's not over.
Yeah.
Like both of us are going to continue to seek to understand, and both of us are going to continue to seek to love, just because we've committed our lives to each other, and we're a team, and we're fam.
We are fam.
Just like in The Fast and the Furious, which,
I've
oh
never
my
seen
gosh,
those movies.
I can't wait until Hobbs and Shaw. It's going to be incredible.
I have no feelings on that because I have not seen any of those movies.
I think here's what you need to know. There's a man called Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. There's
Never
a
heard of
man
him.
called Jason Statham.
Mm-hmm.
Separately, they're incredible. Together, it's going to explode your mind in happy bullets. It's going to be great.
Well, that doesn't sound great. I might just let you tell me about it.
Done. I will FaceTime you during the movie and
Gross.
narrate the whole thing.
No way.
While the camera faces the screen. Except you'll be with me.
I think that's illegal. So the last...
it's illegal to record it. It's not illegal to broadcast it. I don't know if that's true.
Really?
That's probably not true.
I feel like that's not
Don't
the
quote
case.
me on it.
To quote somebody at work today, that feels illegal.
I would love to know the context in which that statement was made.
Yeah. I'll tell you later, but it's illegal, so I can't say it on the air. I'm just
Cool.
kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Cool.
We're all very legal at work. This was unrelated to work matters.
Booyah.
All right. Anyways, the last thought that I have is just about the dad again. I think as you guys kept talking about the movie in the episode, like, you talked a lot about the family and them supporting each other, and I just had this feeling when I watched it, like the dad was the odd man out of the family, and that it wasn't until... actually, I wouldn't even say it wasn't until the end. I would say when his dad dies, when the grandfather dies, and then they're having to like smuggle him out. I think that is that's a really big moment in him sort of being more in with the family. But I think a lot of that's his own. I think that's his own stuff. Like, I don't think they're necessarily keeping
The family
him out.
wasn't pushing him out.
No.
He was isolating himself.
He was like distancing with everything that he did. And I feel like when that happens, and a little bit when the car happens and they all have to push, but like I feel like really when when the grandfather died and they had to smuggle him out, that was a big moment of like them working together, and they were doing this just ridiculous thing. And I feel like that was just a big bonding moment. And then, fast forwarding to the end where I feel like is finally in the place of accepting his family as they are. And Olive in particular, obviously she's kind of the way that that's demonstrated. Like, he realizes that he doesn't want her to change. He doesn't want anybody else to change her. And in him kind of accepting that, it's like he goes really fast from like accepting that to celebrating it and being like, all right, we're all going to be losers up on this stage, but we're together.
He went really fast, and it made him furious.
All right.
I think, well, and I think it makes me wonder if the catalyst for that was, Olive entered into this pageant where all of the other girls were very much of the same mold.
Mm-hmm.
And Olive was something very different. And I think as she got up to do her dance routine, I think, when the crowd was expressing their shock and awe or disapproval, I think maybe he realized, oh, my girl is up there doing her thing, and it's not like anybody else's, but I don't want anybody else to change that because that's what makes her her. So it was almost like he needed this external force to show him just how precious and special his little girl was.
Yeah. And then his whole family. I mean, I think that was such a cool moment of them dancing together, doing something just totally silly that was very much not a winner thing to do. But him just like embracing it and participating in it.
Yeah.
Love.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Rent bypass?
Bye.
Yeah, I'm going to say bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's a great movie. A really good family. I mean, I guess not a family movie because there's a lot of curse words and stuff, but like...
I mean, family in quotation
once
marks.
your kids are old enough.
It's a good movie about family. It's not a family movie.
Ooh, yes, that's good.
Yeah.
Agree.
Cool. Well, I think that'll probably wrap things up for this episode. So I think it's
Everybody
probably
have a great
safe
week.
to bring the lights up and lower the curtain. And for this week, say that the theater is closed.